happens in real time. How do we help students learn within that?
What stories do they have to share? And are there...
I need to understand, they can't get food.
Fourthly, they need to foster a healthy disregard for the impossible.
Have y'all ever realized
Hailey, quick.
Hey guys, so my name is Hailey again, and I'm going to talk to you about behavioral economics. So when I first entered into my AP Microeconomics course that first day in August, my teacher told us to pull out our books and take notes on that first chapter. In the Principles of Economics by Gregory Mankiw, he noted that Principle 4 was that rational people participate in decision making. This really struck me, and I simply stared at the page. He went on to define rational people as those who systematically participate in decision-making by comparing their decisions at the margin, meaning that they look at the pros and cons of every decision. However, it seems that markets are able to manipulate this behavior. I want to ask how many of us have gone to Amazon.com and we've held off on purchasing something because we get free shipping on orders $25 or over? How many of us have gone to Best Buy to try to buy a television, but we see a TV priced at $300 and another television priced at $400, and there's no obvious difference between them. The height are the same, the pixels are the same. It seems that we're at a loss here. We aren't able to understand our decision-making better. Since the Enlightenment era, individuals have been trying to understand how psychology works with economics. Adam Smith wrote in On the Wealth of Nations, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interests. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages." Many people see Adam Smith as the champion of neoclassical theory today. However, even then in the Enlightenment era, he was trying to understand how psychology works in economic theory. This current economic theory today under the neoclassical model states that people fully use rationality to guide their decisions. It also states that people analyze the pros and cons of every option, what works for us, what negates us, and that we demonstrate favor for the greatest utility. Utility means that we look for what makes us happiest, and that we will choose the option that maximizes happiness. We're not going to go against what makes us happy. We're going to gravitate towards that option. However, I think that the behavioral economics approach better suits consumer behavior. And behavioral economics is a study that incorporates psychology, emotional theories, and problem-solving inefficiencies. To illustrate this, I went to the 2011 Duke Brain Awareness Week Symposium this past spring. In here, several graduate students grouped professors, lawyers, and doctors, and myself into one room. They decided that they were going to illustrate the inefficiencies of our decision-making with a very simple proposition: candy. So while these professionals were in this room along with myself, the graduate students decided that they would offer 4 Jolly Ranchers to us. And we could eat these Jolly Ranchers. However, if we held off 15 minutes to eat this Jolly Rancher, we would receive an additional piece of candy. Now, the doctors and lawyers became very passionate about this last piece of candy, and they launched into an argument over analyzing the pros and cons of this last Jolly Rancher, taking about 10 minutes, so in the end they only had to wait about 5 minutes to receive the Jolly Rancher. It seems that we're unable to overcome overconfidence, optimism, and self-interest in our decision-making. And it certainly seems that making analytical economic decisions is difficult. We base our decisions off of perceptual comparisons and emotional values. If we continue to propagate this behavior, we're going to make more costly decisions in the future. And I want to ask, how can we better analyze our own behavior? What can we do to help ourselves? Dan Ariely is the author of Predictably Irrational, whom I base much of my research off of. In the early 2000s, he asked his MIT students what subscription they would take from theeconomist.com. The Economist offered a $59 web subscription, a $125 print subscription, and a print and web subscription for $125 on the left. In this option, the majority of MIT students chose this bottom option, the print and web for $125. However, over here on the right, whenever we see the print and web costing $125 and the web costing $59, the MIT students went back and they chose the web option. Why did this happen? Ariely proposes that we base our decisions off of price arrangements. The students here on the left believed that they were receiving a free deal in getting this web subscription. They automatically did the addition in their head and they saw that it was going to be about $200, whereas over here, they did not perceive a deal. But there certainly is hope. In my own research, I'm looking at the emotional values and the price arrangements as well. I'm looking at the under 25 population and the over 25 population. The difference here breaks because the 25-year-olds is whenever the frontal lobe, the area in the brain that usually controls decision making, stops development at 25 years of age. In my surveys, I offered people the option to see a movie for $5, dinner for $8, and the third option, a combo for $13, meaning that they weren't getting a deal. However, in the second, they were offered a deal, the movie and dinner for $11. They were getting $2 off. And what were these results between the two populations? Well, 50% of people under 25 years of age chose the $13 deal in the first option, and 70% of adults chose the same option as these, under 25 members. In the second option of the surveys, after seeing the $2 deal in the second option, several more students selected this option, a 30% increase, meaning 80% of students chose this, but the adults only increased by 10%. Here there is a 20% difference in respondents' choices, and I believe that this illustrates that whenever the frontal lobe stops its development at about 25, we begin to be more consistent in our decision making. There wasn't a necessarily good or bad option to choose in my surveys. However, adults seem to be more consistent in what they want. They understand the value better of what their money holds, and the students are more wild in their price selection. Perception obviously works into this very well, and perception hinders people, as many people behave in self-defeating actions even though they believe that they are satisfying their own desires. Of course, this works really well whenever you consider advertisements and how they influence us. So I'm going to show you a popular commercial. Here it is.
Where the air gets cold. Tale about Christmas that you've all been told. And real things that all the stuff is Christmas comes this time each year.
Now, although we certainly could base our economic decisions off of a cartoon penguin and many polar bears and what they perceive to be a good deal, I would like to question this popular example and how we succumb to advertisement. In this example of Coca-Cola, no actual information is provided regarding the product. We don't know the actual quality of the product other than the polar bears and penguins seem to like it. In these commercials like Fanta, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, we see a lot of friends hanging out in sunlight. We see them with good music in the background, having a good time. These commercials propagate the idea that you can be happy, but you'll be much happier with our product. Perception of individuals is furthermore manipulated when companies try to establish their product as unique. But whenever you compare the generic brand versus the Coca-Cola brand, you might not be able to see it from here, but the ingredients are exactly the same between these two. In fact, the generic brand is actually healthier, having less calories, less sodium, less carbohydrates, and less total fat. In fact, the generic brand is 3 times cheaper than the Coca-Cola regular brand. Consumers should not simply buy a product because a company has great marketing power. We should instead look for generics. Another popular example would be in comparing gasoline prices. Companies like ExxonMobil advertise that their gas is distinguishable, that it sets them apart from other companies. However, a CBS report in 2010 essentially concluded that gasoline is the same across all brands. However, the off-brand actually sells their gas at 20 cents cheaper per gallon. This results in an average total savings of $170 per year. This was a 2010 study, not even accounting for the gas price increase of today. In conclusion, I hope that all of you will seek to understand how your behavior influences your decisions. We have the opportunity as consumers to help ourselves at this time. If we continue to propagate irrational behavior and we continue to look at the emotional value in advertisements, we have a more costly future ahead of us. Dan Ariely in Predictably Irrational concluded one segment by saying, "We don't know what we want until we see it in action. We don't know what kind of bike we want until we see it in the Tour de France. Everything is relative, and that's the point. Everything is relative, and that's the point." This is what behavioral economics gets at. Consumers have the availability here to employ more rational behavior in their decision making by analyzing the differences in every product. Thank you.